We've now seen the photo of President Trump embracing Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, in the Oval Office. Of course, these two gentlemen have known each other for a very long while. What did you make of that deal they brokered? And help us understand why the president would have bought into it.
Yeah, well, I think fundamentally, this was a Democratic deal that President Trump simply signed on to. So for all of the kind of representations of this big bipartisan congressional deal, it really was a Democratic congressional deal that President Trump signed on to. I think that we should be cautious in extrapolating too much from it. For one, I actually think that it could make things like tax reform even more difficult, because instead of actually just clearing the decks through the midterm elections with the debt ceiling, now you're actually putting up a debt ceiling vote, probably in the spring, right when tax reform might be heating up, and potentially giving a lot of leverage to Democrats. Also, the approval ratings of President Trump among Democrats is very low, as we know. And as a result, the bar for Democrats to actually negotiate with President Trump is going to be incredibly high. So if it's an unequivocal win for Democrats, maybe we get some sort of bipartisan deal, but I think the bar is going to be very high for it.
I'm just interested in sort of what all of this says to you about who's leading and who you follow for indications of what's going to happen in Washington, D.C. Up until that moment, you had the Treasury Secretary saying he wanted the debt ceiling to be raised for 18 months. He was talking about a much more long-term raising of the debt ceiling. Does that make you give less credence to what Stephen Mnuchin has to say about any number of issues?
Yeah, I think honestly that was surprising for us Washington watchers, right? Because the administration had optically actually was on the same page with congressional Republicans, and then of course it sounds like President Trump sort of unilaterally made this decision without the backing of his administration. I mean, I think that your point is fundamental here, especially when you're talking about things again like tax reform, because does this undermine the trust that congressional Republicans have in President Trump? Now, they're not saying that they are publicly, but I think privately, it would not be surprising if this is at least diminished their confidence that they're actually negotiating in good faith with this president.